Let's do the opening theme.
Hi, I'm James Genus, and you're watching for BassPlayersOnly.com.
Hi everyone, John Liebman here. You're watching for BassPlayersOnly.com. We're coming to you from the riverfront in Detroit, Michigan, at the place formerly known as Shane Park, now known as the Aretha Franklin Amphitheater, affectionately known now as simply the Aretha, which is just fine with me. And we're here at the Herbie Hancock show with our special guest, Herbie Hancock bassist and Saturday Night Live band bassist, James Genus. How you doing, James?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm great. How many years have we been talking about doing this interview?
Man, it's been a long time. A long time of this and this, and we finally connected. Yeah. I can't even remember how long.
Yeah, and here we are. I think it's been about 10 years, actually, believe it or not.
Yes.
So now you have that much more to talk about.
Yeah, I hope so.
Well, I want to talk about a couple of things here. First of all, you're from Virginia, right?
Yes.
Tell me about your initial exposure to music, your musical upbringing, and how you became a bass player in the first place. How'd you get mixed up in all this nonsense?
I became a bass player because guitar didn't seem... I started with guitar when I was 6, and it just didn't feel at home. And then I started picking up the bass around 12, 13. And in the area of Virginia where I live, it's called the Tidewater area. And there around in the area was the Wooten brothers, O'Teal and his brother. Up in Richmond was Carter Beauford and all those guys. And we just, Steve Wilson's a saxophone, great saxophone player. Billy Drummond's a great drummer. So all these people were in this area at one time.
What part of Virginia is that in?
It's like on the East Coast.
Okay.
Like right, it's, I always say, like, if there was ever like a war or something, that would be one of the places they hit, because it's a town full of Army bases, Navy bases, NASA, Air Force. Everything is like right there on this little, area.
You think about that now? Did you think about that then too, or were you,
I was just brought there. I was born there, but it's a great area, great town. Missy Elliott is from that area. Timberland, the Neptunes, everybody's from this area called the Tidewater area.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Lots of music coming from there.
And then you somehow discovered the bass?
I discovered the bass and played around in local bands and jammed with, as we talked about earlier, with Reggie Wooten and with Victor and all those guys. And then I went to school in Richmond, Virginia at Virginia Commonwealth University. And that's when I met Carter and those guys and all the Dave Matthews guys from up there. And then I met Ellis Marcellus. He taught there. He was like artist in residence, the father of the Marcelluses.
Oh, yeah.
And I was studying upright when I went to college, and I was playing a lot with him and touring and doing stuff with him and studying with him. And he suggested that I move to New York.
Excuse me, were you in a jazz studies program, or were you studying?
Yes.
Did you also study classical double bass with the bow and samandal and all that?
I did, but I don't do it. I did. Because you have to graduate. You have to do a recital, and I did a recital on it.
Sounds like you really loved it.
I love people that do it very well.
Do you know what? When I got called to play Into the Woods, where the national tour, and Cleo Lane and Stephen Sondheim came to the show, to the rehearsals, I practiced every bowing technique as if I was going to have a solo in that style, and I'm practicing. I finally get to the rehearsal. What do I? Dum, 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 dum. Well, there was a little arco, but a boom, 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 boom. But I digress. Anyway, so you went to New York. This was around, how old were you?
21.
Okay.
But I was doing gigs and stuff, playing with people before that. But I officially moved to New York when I was 21. And I actually went to an audio engineering school, Institute of Audio Research, which was above this famous jazz club called Bradley's.
I've been there.
Yep. So
It's long and narrow, like a lot of clubs in New York.
yeah, so I used to go to school up there, and then at nights I would go downstairs and try to catch, whatever piano player,
Yeah.
trio.
Was it Larry Willis, or was it
Larry Willis.
Benny? What's his name? Anyway, I'm sorry.
It's Barry Harris. Just every great piano player.
And I think Asante Debriani there.
He played there a lot,
Yeah.
and I used to play there a lot. Actually, in later years, I would play there a lot also. But I got on the scene there. Started doing a lot of like acoustic stuff, doing straight ahead stuff, playing with the Cats, and my first major gig playing acoustic was with Horace Silver.
Ah.
And then from that was Roy Haynes, and then from that, Bramford, and then all these various other people, great musicians, and started recording and doing different stuff. But then a lot of the straight ahead cats only knew me as a straight ahead cat.
Right.
And then the electric stuff I was doing on the other side of the track. And but who was it? Greg Osby,
Yeah.
and Randy Brecker. They found out that I played electric, and because I was doing these gigs, and that's how I got introduced to Mike and the Brecker brothers, was through Randy.
This was long after 7th Avenue South, was it?
Yes. Okay. Yes, this was like, I guess, late 80s, early 90s, because the Return of the Brecker brothers was like 92. So like 89, 90, 91. And I was playing with Bob Berg at the time.
Yeah.
So, which is, great. Oof.
Yeah.
That was a great band.
So, how did the Saturday Night Live gig come about?
Well, I got asked to sub to do some shows for SNL, and I was kind of like, wow. I never really thought about, TV or doing that sort of thing, but it seemed great. And at the time, or before that, Bramford was doing the Tonight Show, so
Right.
it was kind of like, oh, that could be a cool thing. So, I did a couple of things with them, and then it turned into that.
Who was the band leader at the time?
Lenny Pickett, still the
Okay.
band leader, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, some stability, but also a lot of names, man. Like Paul Schaefer and David Sanborn and Neil Jason and Marcus. I think didn't Will Lee do it? And G.E. Smith.
Michael Brecker, all these
Michael
guys.
Brecker. Can we go off on a tangent here? Because Michael Brecker is just one of my favorite all time. I met him a couple of times. I didn't realize he was like about 9 feet tall, I think.
He played like that.
But tell me something about Michael Brecker, the human, the man that maybe some of us don't know.
He was, he looked like a doctor or something, or a lawyer or something, whatever. But he was an amazing person, so kind. I just couldn't believe it. It's like, a few people that you meet in this industry that they have every right to have like an attitude or be above you. He is not like that. He was not like that. Herbie is not like that. It's just amazing. Like, so generous, so kind, and just a great musician, and funny too. Mike was a funny person.
His wife at the Detroit Jazz Festival a couple of years ago.
Susan.
Yeah, Susan was in one of those talk tent things, just a one-on-one interview, and it was about him and his life, and she would say to him, Michael, we need to talk. And he'd say, what? I love you. Why can't that just be good enough? Does that sound like Michael?
Yes. Yes. So I first met him, because I known Randy, and I first met him, I was out on the road with Bob Berg, and we were touring in Europe. This was pre-cell phones and all that. Yeah. And I was like, how did people find people back in the day? But somehow he found out the hotel I was in.
Radio registry at the time, right?
Well, this was in Europe, so I don't know how he found me in Europe.
Wow.
And I got a phone call from him in Europe. And he was like, and I was like, it's Michael Brecker, oh my God. And he was like, hey, James. I was like, hi, Mike. And we're starting we're doing this thing. Randy and I are thinking about putting the band back together and blah, 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 blah. And we would really like, you to be in it.
Wow.
And I was like, he's like, we'll play a little bit just to make sure everything is cool, but I think we're gonna do this. And I was like, cool. I mean, when, where, whatever. And that first record, it went on, like, I would go to the studio like almost every day because I was geeking out. So go to the studio almost every day when they were doing pre-production for the record. Never played. We just talk. Never played. I got to meet him, and
Kind of like Ringo during Sgt. Pepper or the White Album or whichever one.
yeah, because he knew of me, and some people had recommended me for his band back in the day when he started doing like the acoustic stuff.
Yeah.
But we didn't play until we started recording. And the song Above and Below was the first song that we recorded for that, and that was the first time we played together.
Thank goodness we have those recordings. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me about the current gig. I've interviewed a lot of the late night people, from Ricky Minor from the Tonight Show, and Will Lee I've interviewed a few times from the Letterman Show, and Mike Merritt from the Conan Show. But somebody made a comment one time. It was one of the Tonight Show guys. I can't remember who it was, but it was Bob Hurst or somebody. He says, we play about 6 minutes of music every night. I said, are you complaining? No, I'm not complaining, just commenting.
Well, you know what? We do more. I don't know how.
Well, you have an hour and a half. They only had an hour.
But also we play before the audience comes in or while the audience is coming in.
They probably did that too.
Well, I mean, they stop a lot too.
Okay.
But we play like 30 minutes.
Oh wow.
Before, the people come in. And then throughout the show, it might be a total of, but actually we're playing the whole time, because I know in the Fallon show they start playing and then they stop, and then they start right back up before it starts again. But for us, I've noticed they could have changed by now, but a couple of the shows that I've seen, they did that because of camera stuff and all that. But for us, we're constantly playing. You can see it when the show is airing live. And while they have a commercial, and they'll go and it'll be like kind of behind the scenes, and they'll show like the tech people or the crew people putting sets together, and you still hear the music. So we're still playing through the commercial. Yeah. So we don't stop until the camera comes back on. So we're playing a lot actually.
Yeah, but there's something that always caught my eye. You've got to sometimes work within the confines of a small space.
Yes.
But it always struck me very strange how the band is like split right down the middle. You have trouble with cohesiveness with
No, I mean, well, bass and drums are on the same side.
Okay.
So, and Sean is right behind me, so I feel it.
Yeah.
And then I have, when we go to air, I have like one of those seats that kind of vibrates.
Oh, okay.
So you feel like the drums, you hear the drums too.
Yeah. Well, I know that there are things that guys stand on that makes it.
I like that. I did that once for a TV show.
Yeah.
And because it's like basically like a speaker.
Yeah.
And the speaker it just didn't I still couldn't feel it.
When I was in London, I interviewed Dave Swift, who plays with the Jules Holland show, and he was telling me about that. He thought it was the greatest thing in the world.
It's good for some, not for others. For me, because I was used to playing with the other one.
Sure.
And
but you have something that's an actual chair?
It's a stool. It's like I forgot what they call it.
It vibrates?
Yeah. It's the speaker.
Did you ever turn it on when you're not playing the bass?
No. I don't control it.
Yeah.
The music controls it.
Okay. Let's move on here. Tell me about the current gig. You're playing, I don't even think I mentioned, we're here before the Herbie Hancock show at the Aretha. Yeah. And you've been with Herbie for quite a while. Tell me about that gig.
I've been with him 10 years maybe.
Wow.
On and off for 10 years. It's been, it's a dream come true. It's like, what musicians talk about and aspire, and, just hope one day that they can, have a chance to play with him, be around him. And it's a great, musical experience. It's a great learning experience. It's an experience in humility. It's experiencing so many things. Him as a person, him as a teacher, all of those things. I'm blessed.
It's so prolific over the years. Do you still play Watermelon Man like all the time, or Maiden Voyage, or
Play the hits. Yeah, we play the hits. I mean, with this band, it's a little bit different because it's more kind of electric. But throughout the years, yeah, I've done stuff with him, with Wayne Shorter, and like.
Had those two ever met before?
I don't think so. They don't like playing together either. That's what I hear.
You probably don't mind playing with Vinnie Colaiuta either.
No, he's another one. I've known him throughout the years, and then to get a chance to play with him, and just those guys we grew up listening to. I did, and just to be able to be on the stage with them and work with them and play with them and kind of have a conversation in music on stage is amazing to me.
Tell me about your gear.
I am using Harkey. And a LH1000 head, but right now I'm using a what is it, the high drives, the new high drives that they have out, and I'm using Walter Woods.
I have a Walter Woods. I bought it in like 1980.
Mine is 1990.
Wow. when I told my mother how much I had paid for it back in 1980, I think she's over it now because I've more than made my money back, Mom. But I love those. I went to his house one time in California.
I met him once.
Yeah.
Man, they don't make them anymore, but I liked it because it has two channels.
Yeah.
So it's two separate channels, and when I'm doing gigs that I need like two channels, or if I'm playing upright and electric, separate EQ. I love that. But when it's not that, I'm using the LH1000 head.
You ever play any upright on the Herbie gig?
Yes, with orchestras.
Wow.
We do a lot of orchestra gigs.
Don't they have enough upright basses in an orchestra?
They put us in like a little cone of silence in front, and we play, and they complain about how loud we are.
Yeah. That's funny. And your bass it's Federa, right?
Federa.
Tell me about that. 5-string, right?
That's a 5-string, and that is I don't know, and no, it's Emperor model, single cutaway. But I normally play the Emperor with I'm so bad at this. With the two hands, not the single cutaway.
Okay.
And
double cutaway? Not the double cutaway?
And they just had a signature model that they made for me. And I love their instruments, and whatever they want to give me and let me play, I do that.
What kind of strings do you play?
LaBella strings, or sometimes their strings, but if they have time to make them, because they don't really have time. They're making basses, they don't have time to make strings.
Yeah,
but
LaBella's another great company.
Yeah, great company. Who before LaBella, I was doing Coco, the father.
Yeah, Richard.
Yep, and he used to make the strings for Federa, and it's just kind of I just kind of like parlayed over into that. I started off with the Coco strings, and then I moved over to LaBella since the son was there. Yeah. So, and he was like, what did my dad do? Let me get the exact, gauge of them and all that. And so they make a great string, and I've been using those strings for a long time.
Let's talk about technique for a minute, because we've been known for years for BassPlayersOnly.com for our interviews. We've had a new interview every single week for over 10 years. And now we've also migrated over all the content from my instructional courses, and they are now part of for BassPlayersOnly.com. So we are now the source for learning bass online as well. And a lot of the people that we get, they may be kind of new at it, or they may be older, or maybe retired, or they've always wanted to do it. But I wanted to ask you what wisdom you can impart to those people who want to learn bass, have always wanted to learn bass, and now are at the point where they're ready to do so. What do you think they need to know? What do they need to remember? What do they need to keep in mind, or jump in anywhere?
I don't know. Listen is a good thing. Check out those before you learn the history. I like to say always with bass players who tend to want to go down one lane, as far as like, oh, I want to play rock, oh, I want to do this, and I always say you should check out all types of music, even if you don't play them. You should know, what the role of the bass plays in that kind of music, and see how how it fits in the music and what to do. I always think that that's a good thing.
Excellent advice. What about the future? What else? You've been with Herbie for off and on for 10 years. You've been with Saturday Night Live for approximately 20 years. As far as you can see ahead in the future, what else can we look forward to see and hear from James Genus?
Working on, doing a personal project of myself and
solo record?
Yeah. I've been with this band with Makoto Ozone called The Trio, and I did some writing and stuff in that, but just trying to maybe put something out, that says this is me.
Okay. Upright and electric, or
that's always been the problem. Like what to do, what type of music, what instrumentation. Just it'll be a little bit of everything.
You could put out more than one record,
I could.
One at a time. Huh?
Yeah, one obstacle at a time.
All right. Let me ask you one more question before we fry here in the sun. What would you be if you weren't a bass player? Something outside of music.
Cartoonist.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Have you dabbled in that before?
I used to be a great drawer, a cartoonist. Yeah, I used to draw. That was it was drawing, sports. I was good at sports, and an architect.
Wow. So what do you do during the skits on Saturday Night Live? Do you sit and doodle and draw cartoons?
No, I'm like, looking at the monitor, making sure, and listening, making sure that I catch my cue.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a lot of, on that show, it's a lot of like moving parts. It's a lot of movement. So you don't really have time to rest that much. So
how much contact do you have with Lorne Michaels?
Not that much.
Yeah.
Not that much. Every once in a while, we'll cross paths.
He's got a lot to think about. He's probably not thinking about the bass player in the band.
No. We've had conversations in wardrobe rooms and in the hallway, in passing, and outside of the studio.
Just superficial, friendly stuff. Talk about the weather and
just whatever's going on at the moment. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Just wondering.
That's a lot more than most, I'm sure.
Well, this is great. Finally, getting to sit down with you and getting this interview that we've been trying to make happen. Let's not wait another 10 years before we do it again.
Yeah, I hope so, man.
And thank you so much. Good luck with the Herbie gig. We're looking forward to it tonight, and much luck and continued success with that gig and the Saturday Night Live and the recording project or projects. Whatever else you do.
Other things, yeah. It's like, yeah, I'm keeping myself busy.
All right. Well, maybe we'll do a follow-up, and you can fill us in on all the new stuff that you're going to do.
Okay.
All right. On location backstage at the Aretha in Detroit before the Herbie Hancock Show with our special friend, our special guest, Mr. James Genus. I'm John Liebman. You're watching the #1 site for exclusive one-on-one bass player interviews and now online bass instruction, more and more people's favorite site for learning bass online. That's forBassPlayersOnly.com. I'm John Liebman. Thanks for watching.